Welcome back to Grinding to a Halt. I'm Zach Van Ness. This week, I'm having a conversation with Allie Goertz. We're talking about creativity. More importantly, we're talking about the pursuit of creativity and finding alternative ways to fund your creative projects. Specifically, in Allie's case, talking about using Kickstarter as a tool to fund your goals. For those not familiar, Allie is a writer, former editor of Mad Magazine. Yes, literally the Mad Magazine you're thinking of, that one. She's also a musician, and this is her first album in 9 years. The album's called Peeled Back. It is a Nine Inch Nails cover album, but it is not what you're expecting when you hear that a comedian is covering Nine Inch Nails songs. These songs are earnest, they are extremely honest, they are completely rearranged. I talk about this in the interview, but it sounds nothing like a Nine Inch Nails song. As someone who listens to a lot of Nine Inch Nails, going into this, it was a wholly new experience. So we get into what drove her to want to make this album, the story behind it, especially the part where 3 or 4 years ago she had never even heard Nine Inch Nails. She was aware of Trent Reznor as a composer, but not as the frontman of Nine Inch Nails. So we talk about that. We talk about kind of that subversion of being a person in comedy who is now making this album, the way that was perceived, some of the expectations around that, and then we talk about her using Kickstarter as a tool to fund this project. And not only using Kickstarter, but really blowing it out of the water. So she initially came in with a goal of $10,000, and by the time the Kickstarter ended, she had raised over $42,000. So 400% of her goal. And then we talk about the process over the next year and a half, from starting that Kickstarter to today, the day this drops, July 9th, the album coming out. So this is my conversation with Allie. It's a lot of fun. I've talked about it some in the past on the show and then on socials. The music videos for this album, I am in them. They were so much fun to shoot. I got to be on set and hang out with Allie. We talk about that creative process there. We talk about what it was like being on set for something that was, at the end of the day, very low budget and very ambitious for these shoots, and kind of the communal goal of making the best possible music videos we could in the short amount of time and the very little money we had to do them. So it was really fun catching up with Allie. I'm very excited that the album is out and that people finally get to hear it. The songs are ridiculously good. So this is my conversation with Allie. I'll be back at the end for some final thoughts. Allie, first of all, thank you for joining me. And congratulations on the album coming out. I know it's been a very long process.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, it's finally here. So exciting. 2 years in the process.
So like 2 years from initial idea or 2 years of work on the album?
So the 2 years, I would say that clock started ticking when I did my first demo. So from the time that I did my very first demo, which did not make it onto the album, into when I actually have released the album to a little over 2 years.
How different is that demo from what is actually coming out?
I'm going to be honest, that first demo is really, really emblematic of the music that came onto the entire album. It was a cover of what's it called? I forget what it's called, but it's something off like one of the newer albums. And Every Day is Exactly the Same. And I just really love that song. It's not very much like classic Nine Inch Nails. When people think of Nine Inch Nails, they don't really think of songs like that. And that might be why I didn't end up using it on the album, but might be why it sounded like my album, because I think what spoke to me about it was how different it was from the Downward Spiral and Pretty Hate Machine. It really spoke to me. So very instrumental in shaping the sound of the album Peeled Back of mine. And I will be releasing those B-sides to the Kickstarter backers who signed up for it.
Awesome. Now I've heard a good bit of the album. Some songs so many times now after the music video shoots. But it's weird because I'm so familiar with the songs themselves, but the spin that you put on it makes it such a unique experience. Like going into a cover album, I always have this idea of like, all right, I kind of know what I'm gonna get. Like, yeah, it'll
Yeah.
sound like the song, but they're so far removed from the original that it's kind of shocking at first, and I almost didn't clock them as being Nine Inch Nails songs, even though I'm so familiar with those songs themselves. So you did
Wow.
a ridiculously good job of making them your own while staying true to what those songs are.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the goal. The goal was very much to, because what is the point of a cover song?
Mhm.
There are two paths you could take. You could do a very loyal cover, which
Yeah.
why? Why do that? But you can. That's option one. And option
Yeah.
B is I'm gonna make it my own. And who is a better example of that than Johnny Cash covering Nine
Yeah.
Inch Nails with Hurt? At a certain point, that just becomes, by Trent Reznor's own opinion, that becomes a Johnny Cash song.
Yeah.
Now, do I think that I get to lay claim into all 15 of these Nine Inch Nails songs? No, I do not.
Yes. Oh, no. All
Oh,
right.
yes, I do. Yes, I do. um, no. However, I did know that it was already going to sound a little bit different, even if I'm going with approach A, which is a very
Yeah.
loyal cover, because I don't know if you know this, I'm a lady and I have a lady voice, and my lady voice sounds a little different than
Yeah.
Trent's. And so, I knew that it was already going to skew feminine, which already, unless I was doing like some sort of like metal screaming, it's going to be delicate,
Yeah.
it's going to be sweet. And so I was trying to figure out how do I kind of lean into that without it being a gimmick. I didn't want it to
Yeah.
just be, wouldn't it be funny if, and then we get
Yeah.
the like acoustic versions of Nine Inch Nails, and probably, and especially since I come from a comedic background, that might be what some people are expecting.
Yeah.
And I was very happy and just very satisfied with the work coming out how it has, because I really wanted to have my own approach while still being really loyal, not to the chord progressions or, the arrangements so much themselves, but just kind of, for lack of a better word, like the spirit of the song and the
Yeah.
way that the song makes me feel as it was for my individual listening experience. And I
Yeah.
think I did a good job of that, even when the songs are very different from the source material.
Yeah. It's interesting that you mentioned like coming from a comedic background and that kind of being people's first expectation of what these songs would be. And even
Yeah,
in the Kickstarter, you mentioned like this isn't a comedy album. Like you're
right.
not it's not a gimmick. It's not you like tearing down these songs or
Yeah,
Weird Alifying them.
this isn't Weird Alley.
Yeah. With well done. Well done. But but no, like, and that was knowing you as a comedian first, like that was my first interpretation of what this would be. And that would have been a turnoff because these songs are so earnest and so
Yes.
powerful in the subject matter that it would have been such a shame if anyone tried to do that.
I agree. I'm also I think because I have like a music comedy background,
Yeah.
I might be especially judgmental of music comedy
Yeah.
because it really has to be firing on all cylinders to work. It needs to be funny, but it also needs to be good musically, and
Yeah.
so rarely do those two actually intersect.
Yeah.
And it would have been extraordinarily difficult to make it work, and I'm glad I didn't try. That being said, I do think there are humorous elements, not only to hearing a woman sing some of these more aggressively masculine lyrics,
Yeah.
especially on my cover of Big Man with a Gun,
Yeah.
where I'm referring to a lot of male identifying qualities. I'll put it that way. um, there is something intrinsically funny about hearing a soft voice say, are we allowed to swear on this podcast, by the
Oh
way?
yeah. Yeah. Say whatever you want.
Yeah, yeah. So saying I want to fuck you like an animal reads differently coming from me.
Yeah.
And you might a little bit chuckle the first time you hear it, but my hope is that as the song continues, you're going to get into the real meaning of the
Hmm.
song, which does, I think, change based on who's
Yeah.
saying it.
Yeah.
But I also think Trent Reznor is incredibly funny. And I think that there's
Yeah.
like a sense of humor to Nine Inch Nails that I find very satisfying. For example, in March of the Pigs, there's so much aggression and so much, just high octane energy.
Hmm.
And it's gross. The lyrics are like
Yeah.
disgusting. And then you get this really major chord and this fun little piano bit and like, and doesn't it make you feel
Yeah.
better? That's funny. That is genuinely a punchline.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to still keep some of that type of humor, which in my opinion is like very dry, very cheeky, very
Yeah.
self-aware. And I love that.
Yeah. It's one of the things as a person who listens to a lot of heavy music that I really like about heavy music is for the most part, people who don't listen to it have this assumption that it's all dark and all evil, but majority of it has that very tongue in cheek, like, yeah, wink and a nod, we know what we're doing here sort of
Totally.
approach to it. It doesn't mean that it's
Yes.
not earnest and they don't mean it, but they also understand what they're doing and they play it up because it's part of the game. Um, so yeah, Trent very good at it. Even there's
Yes.
that clip of them like coming out on stage saying, "You guys ready to have a good time?" Too bad that was the last fucking band.
Yes, that's
Like,
one of my favorite things.
like that kind of stuff. It that to me really embodies what their music also is. Like, yeah, this is dark and depressing, but we're gonna have a good time being dark and depressed. Like, yeah, let's all be emo right now. And as a scene kid, a former scene kid, I love that.
Yeah, yeah. And also, for anyone who doesn't know kind of how I got into this project, I'm a very late bloomer when it comes to Nine Inch Nails. I was very familiar with Trent Reznor, the composer,
Mhm.
and 0% aware of Nine Inch Nails and their frontman, Trent Reznor. I could not believe that was the same guy, which is insane. Um, However, I do think it's so interesting to start with someone's newest work that which
Yeah,
would have been the film scores and then go backwards and see how they got there. Um, and something that I think lends itself to this sense of humor that I'm kind of talking about is when you are scoring a movie, I imagine you just have to have such a sense of timing and when
yeah.
emotions are going to hit and when it is relevant to have things swell or to have them kind of go back a little bit.
Hmm.
And that's what makes you a funny person is being able to know timing and
Yeah.
know how to read the room. And Trent Reznor is so good at that.
Yeah. No, it's a manipulation of a situation to get
Mm.
your desired outcome.
Totally. Yeah, that's such a good point.
And so comedy, it works that way. And like you said, really good musicians understand that. And I love his film scores too for that reason of it. You feel it so much. Like he and Atticus are so good at at pulling what they want to out of you in that given moment without it being distracting from what's playing out on screen. Like
Yes.
they're great to just listen to. I listen to the Watchmen soundtrack quite a lot while working,
Yeah.
which is just like a panic-inducing soundtrack. But like when then paired with the visuals, it's so unbelievably powerful, which is why they're winning awards hand over fist
Yes.
for what they're doing. Um, but tying that back to the music, it's when paired with the lyrics and the darkness of his lyrics, it just works so well. It's and I was late to them as well. Like I
Yeah.
didn't really start listening to them until a couple years ago. I did know him as a composer. Growing up like really Christian, I knew them as like the bad band. You don't listen to them. So
What's amazing is that even in 2024, the closer lyrics as well as the closer music video, I think still could be seen as controversial. I know
yeah,
people in my family that really are excited that I have an album coming out. They know me as not only like their sweet little family member,
yeah,
but they know me as my former band name, Cosby Sweater, which,
yeah,
while controversial, was not at the time. It was meant to be very wholesome and sweet. And my first
yeah.
album is all about like cartoons that I love. And so they're telling me like, where do we buy the album? I'm like, I think you guys sit this one out.
Yeah.
I don't know that you guys will like this one. Um, at least this version. I did do a couple of radio edits just in
Mhm,
case. And one of them was making me laugh out loud because I do a radio edit by my mixer, John Griffin, of Big Man with a Gun.
mhm.
And almost every word is edited.
Yeah.
And it just makes it so much worse because
Yeah.
you think you're pretty sure you know what I'm saying, but it might even be worse than it is in your head. You know what I mean? So it just becomes just so filthy. They won't be playing that on the radio, but it's nice to have just in case.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Well, I'm sure we've got between the two of us, we've got some contacts we could reach out to. We could make it
Yes.
happen. But that brings to a good point. Why Nine Inch Nails? If it's so far a departure from not only the type of music you were listening to, being someone who they weren't even on your radar a couple years ago, to just personality wise, if it's like surprising to people that this
Yes.
would be the route you would go, why Nine Inch Nails, and how did you even really come to start listening to their music aside from Trent as a composer?
Yeah, I was going through a really rough little patch of time, which is, aside from being a middle school kid, like the ultimate time to get into Nine Inch Nails. It's like you're either in middle school when they came out, or
Yeah,
you're feeling like you're in middle school when you get into them.
yeah.
And that's where I was at, where I was going, my relationship was ending and it was really, really tough. At the same time, my cat was slowly dying of cancer.
Hmm.
Um, Money was tight. It was hot, stupid, gross weather outside, and I'm not built for that. Like everything was just making me so upset. And, anger is an emotion that I just really have never had a good grasp on.
Hmm.
It usually would manifest in like being bottled up forever, and then
Yeah,
I would have this like, ugh, awful moment, or it would be just nothing but sadness all the time. And so
yeah.
getting into Nine Inch Nails, which was, my then boss loved them, casually played them in the car. And the next day I was like, hey, what was that? He was like, that was Nine Inch Nails. You should go back and just listen through the catalog in order. That's my advice. And that's what I did.
Mhm.
And I put it on and it just felt like it it felt like drugs in a really, or therapy is maybe the healthier way to say it. It felt like therapy.
Yeah,
Instantly just like, oh, I needed this. This
yeah,
is good. Because it allowed me to kind of stay in that emotional space, but it gave me something to do with those emotions. And
yeah.
it just meant so much to me to have that I kind of felt like, man, how do I get my friends and family who do not like this type of music to connect to these songs? Because it's really important to me that they do. I really want my friends and family to hear what I'm hearing and feel what I'm feeling, but I know that they're not going to listen to it like this. And
Yeah.
so I kind of thought like I'll try one or two songs that I think they might like and maybe I'll send that around. But when I started doing this, I was like, there's so much here. And these melodies, as written, are
Hmm.
already really good and they're kind of buried intentionally by
Yeah,
amazing sound design. And, Trent Reznor's vocals wouldn't usually even be like centered. They'd be
yeah,
panned like all the way over or something. Like during Hurt, you could barely hear him singing, even though it's a
yeah.
ballad. And so I kind of thought like, I'm just gonna say I'm doing this and then go for it. And
Hmm.
um in the process I have turned my mom into a Nine Inch Nails fan because she really loves these songs. And it's so cool to hear her singing these lyrics that whew, they sound interesting coming out of a mom's mouth, you know?
Yeah, and I've met your mom. I baked potatoes in her backyard. So the idea of her singing these songs is very, very funny.
Yes, yeah, you were in a couple of my music videos and my mom was throwing water at us, which we asked her to do, but out of context. What a silly thing.
And she kept apologizing too. She would apologize after throwing water at us.
It's
And we're
like,
like,
Mom, you're
that's the
doing what we
point.
asked you to
That's
do.
yeah, that's why you're here.
Yep.
So if it started with that idea of, I want other people that I care about to be able to participate in this thing that I care about, which I love because I'm into a lot of media that people find off-putting, whether it be the
Yeah.
type of music I listen to or the books I read or the movies I watch,
Hmm.
but they resonate so deeply with me because similar to you, I'm not an angry person by nature.
Yeah.
I do tend to just kind of bury that stuff down and then I'll like, oh, I'll process it out.
Yeah.
I'll kick it over to my liver and eventually it'll go. And and it never worked. So like finding art that challenged me or made me really feel the feelings that I needed to be in that moment is
Yeah.
really important for me. So I want to share those things, but then it's hard to be like, hey, here's this 2.5 hour really depressing Korean movie I need you to watch,
Yeah.
about demon possession. But trust me, it's about childhood trauma too. So
Right.
so I understand that idea of wanting to share it. So how did it go from here's 3 or 4 demos that I can share with my family to, hey, I think I need to make a whole album of this?
I think I was just really enjoying the process so much of figuring these songs out.
Yeah.
And I really was throwing stuff at the wall and just seeing what stuck,
Hmm.
because I wasn't really sure what songs would lend themselves to being rearranged and kind of, done in this new way. And I wasn't really sure what this new way was yet.
Yeah.
The tone of the album kind of found itself as it went along. And through covering Nine Inch Nails songs, I really found more of my voice,
Hmm.
and I really became a much stronger musician. And I also was teaching myself a lot of skills that I'd never really done before. And I just found that the work was so enjoyable that I didn't have any plan on stopping. And since I knew I was doing this already, I kind of figured, like, I'm someone who really benefits from saying out loud, either on Twitter or to a group of people, hey, this is what I'm going to do, because then I
Yeah.
have to do it. And
Yeah.
you add to that by saying, hey, give me money, and then I'll give you this. Now I really have to do it. So it, in a way, was a motivator for me
Hmm.
to get this work done after 9 years of not releasing any music.
Hmm.
It definitely surprised me as well that that's what my next project would be, but
Yeah.
it ended up being, weirdly, the most personal project I've ever done. So
Hmm.
it has been a very special learning experience and just overall process.
Yeah. And I could not be more opposite. I don't want to talk about anything I'm working on till it's done. I hold the things I'm working on so precious that it's like I need to do it, and then I want to put it out in the world and never think about it again. Is is
Yeah,
is how I do things. So the idea of the pressure of like, hey, I'm going to do a Kickstarter, which was then very successful. So
yes, it was.
congratulations on that.
Thank
Um,
you.
that sounds terrifying to me, to then be like, oh, I am now beholden. To me that would like stifle any creativity I had going on. But for you, is it that's a motivator and that pushes you further?
For me, it was necessary. One, financially, it was necessary
Yeah.
because I there was a version where maybe I was going to do this completely in my bedroom, no physical media, no music videos,
Hmm.
just nothing but the tracks. But I ended up talking to my old Cosby Sweater producer, Adam Bush,
Hmm.
and he met with me about the possibility of working on this together. And I kind of let him know, I think I need to do this fully by myself. But when we talked about it, he had this kind of idea of making it really cinematic and
Yeah.
making it a story, like using these songs to tell a story. And how can we just connect me to the people that make this the very best version it could possibly be in my head? And I'm still the one, arranging and playing
Hmm.
the instruments or working with the other musicians, but how do we make this the best version possible? And through that conversation, I got really excited and I realized, I really don't have to limit myself. If I could get people excited about it, I might be able to make a better product. And
Yeah.
so I kind of needed to wait and see how well it would do on Kickstarter to really understand what I would financially be capable of. And so I also wasn't sure if anyone would have any interest whatsoever, especially since I haven't made music in so long.
Yeah.
I don't even know if most of my followers know that I'm a musician.
Hmm.
Because that's how I started, but it's been dormant for a long time. And again, people probably don't necessarily have a lot of overlap with like Mad Magazine and The Simpsons and Nine Inch Nails.
Yeah.
Maybe they do, but I wasn't one of those people, so who knows? And then I asked for an amount of money, $10,000, that would basically cover like really basic things and not have me be in the hole.
Hmm.
And I was blown away to have that fully funded, I think, in like the first 12 hours.
Yeah.
And I cried. And then by the end of the campaign, I reached like 426% of my goal, which was like crazy. And by the way, still, I definitely have learned a lot making Kickstarter because I didn't budget any of that to be profit or just
Yeah.
like to help me out. That was all just like, well, now I have to do 2 albums and I have to do because I promised like B-sides, and now I'm doing all of Pretty Hate Machine. That's going to take a long time, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
And but it did allow me to make music videos, which, as
Yeah.
you know, was a really cool process that
Yeah.
I'm very excited about, and I wouldn't have been able to do that beforehand. And um to summarize the answer to your question, putting it on Kickstarter was really important to me because of the accountability factor,
Hmm.
as well as just knowing that there are people that are, for whatever reason, choosing to support my art. And
Yeah.
God, that feels great, especially since the process of making the album is extremely isolating,
Yeah.
and you're in a bubble. And, it's not something where, for me, I don't want to necessarily run every single creative choice by, you know, an audience or by someone, because I don't want to get influenced too much. So I
Yeah.
am keeping to myself until it's pretty much, in a place where I would want feedback. And so it's just me in my room for the most part. And then I'm able to remind myself, like, oh, it's me in my room, but also like a few hundred people that are like really excited about this are
Yeah.
at the end of it. And even if that's the entire audience that I end up getting, that's a really cool experience that I get to have.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it is still, it plays into this like parasocial relationship that I feel like we have with all media now, because
Mhm.
everybody's just available.
Yeah.
Like you can just talk to anybody you want. Like everybody's online.
Mhm.
But we all are on the journey with you, like waiting for Kickstarter updates or waiting to see
Yeah.
what's happening. Like and it makes it feel like, oh, I'm part of this. I may not be sitting there with a keyboard and a microphone, but I'm still part of this journey.
Yeah,
And it does make it more special when you do hear those songs to be like, yeah, I'm part of this. Like I am
absolutely.
along for this journey in a really weird way, like such a strange way that the internet works now.
Yeah, it's so mutually beneficial for the artist and for the
Yeah.
consumer slash fan. Like, it's just really cool to listen to something that, you're a fan of this person for whatever reason, you think that they're cool, and you get to know that they most likely couldn't have made this art without you. Like,
Mhm.
that's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And going back to as it grew and you were able to like, yeah, I'll do a music video. And then it was, oh, well, I could do 2 music videos and then 3 music videos. Like, was the idea always that you would co-direct? And I know you also co-directed, you were editing, you were doing color processing. Like you learned to do so many additional things for this album that are not music related at all.
Yeah, by a certain point, I was like helping my stepdad like build flats for the
Yeah.
sets, and was learning how to rig props, and like, because, as you know, there's a one of my music videos has a stunt where I'm
Yeah.
hanging from the ceiling, spinning around, and I had to learn, like, how do I rig myself up there? And yeah, I spent lots and lots of hours at the College of YouTube, and lots of tutorials. Um, but when it came to the directing, um, I wasn't really sure what I was going to do with the music videos. I had talked to a few different people about, maybe, like, could you help me with this? Could you
Hmm.
maybe direct? And I reached out to my friend Elle Schneider, who's a really good director of photography and has some music directing credit under her belt as well. And when she and I were brainstorming some ideas for Closer, she had this idea of me cleaning up the old Closer music video set. And it was kind of
Hmm.
played for laughs, but it was interacting with the original Closer music video in a way that I had already kind of wanted to do. And I thought that was fun. And so, because I liked her initial ideation, I was like, why don't we kind of come up with something together that maybe is a little bit more earnest and maybe could tell my story a little bit more clearly.
Yeah.
And by my story, I just mean kind of like the breakup, getting into Nine Inch Nails, finding myself, like getting in touch with my personality more than I ever had. Because that's what
Hmm.
those songs did to me, truly. Like, I really became more of myself by being a Nine Inch Nails fan. And
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of tell that story through the music videos. And because I was creatively and narratively involving myself so much and had such, alongside Elle, such clear visuals that I wanted to pull off, I asked her, like, hey, like, I haven't done this before. I don't know that I would feel comfortable fully directing it, but could I co-direct this with you so I could get an idea of what this is and what we're doing, and kind of let her teach me and kind of go along. And it was so rewarding and so exciting because I've learned, turns out, I love directing, and it is so exciting, and I can't wait to do more of it. And so she and I did 2 videos together, both of which you're in.
Mhm.
And then I ended up meeting up with my friend Ben Trandom to make a video for March of the Pigs, and that's the one where my mom is throwing water at us. And that one, we spent like between ten and $12,000 on 3 music videos, all in, which, if you know budgets for music videos, that's nothing. If you
Yeah.
don't, that's so much money. But
Yeah.
like, it just depends on where you're coming from. But I'm very impressed by what we were able to pull off with that. But March of the Pigs almost cost like $1,000 of like, because it was like I was just spending all these hours on YouTube being like, how do I make my backyard look like a cave?
Yeah.
And how do I how do I recreate these things? And it was mostly, friends like you guys helping me spray paint stuff and get the
Yeah.
lighting right. And there's something really nice about having a really tiny budget because it forces you to kind of be creative in ways that money sometimes can hinder, in my opinion. Like, you go
Yeah.
back and look at early Tim Burton movies where they're using duct tape to keep props together on Pee-wee's
Yeah.
Big Adventure, and you're like, this is just a perfect movie. And then you hear the commentary where, Tim Burton will say like, oh, I wish we could have done this. I wish we could have done that. And then you see later work of his and you're like, I'm glad that you didn't, because
Yeah. This is all green screen now.
yeah. And so, yeah, there's something really fun and kind of punk rock about doing it yourself and figuring it out. And I'm super grateful to every person that was on set, who lent their time and skill and also patience with kind
Mhm.
of me learning this stuff as I went along. Because that's why the album has taken 2 years, because it's not just that I'm making an album, it's that I'm learning how to co-direct and set design
Yeah.
and edit. I
Yeah.
definitely had no clue that I would edit, but turns out I'm very bossy and controlling when it comes to my story. And so I was like, I've already learned so much about kind of putting things in the order I want them when it comes to music. I wonder how similar that skill is in the physical
Yeah.
medium. And I would say it's pretty similar, like in the same way that, like, I don't know, there's something about timing with all of these, with music, with editing, with comedy. Like, it's
Mhm.
all kind of the same thing. It's just that
Yeah.
it's just a different platform to do that same skill.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like that you mentioned like early Tim Burton and budget constrictions kind of leading towards this type of creativity that wouldn't happen otherwise.
Mhm.
Because like being on set, it was such a communal experience. And I had never been on a set of any kind before, other than like a company photo shoot and like cheesy company videos. I had never done anything like that. And every idea was welcomed and every idea was discussed, and like it was such an even playing field of like, oh no, this person thinks we should do this, so let's
Yeah.
try it. Like, it's worth 5 minutes to see if it works, and if it
Yes.
does, great, and if not, we know it doesn't work now. And
Absolutely.
it was so encouraging to just like be around that and just have like unbridled creativity, knowing, hey, we have 4 days to shoot 3 pretty intense music videos, like
Very
the
emotionally and physically.
and the
And
just the setups alone for
Mhm.
Closer and Ruiner,
Oh my
like,
gosh.
it's amazing what was done in such a short amount of time with
Thank
no
you.
money at all.
Yeah.
And
Thank
we
you. And
fucked up that carpet so bad too in that
we did.
studio.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you. And to the point of it feeling like even footing and all ideas welcome, that means a lot to me.
Mhm.
Especially as a first time director. And of course I am sharing that credit with Elle,
Mhm.
and then eventually Ben. But especially because the project is like the Allie Goertz project and I'm the
Yeah,
star of these videos, I knew that the tone that I bring into the room, even if there's someone above me, which would be Elle in terms of her experience and what she's
yeah,
bringing with the camera, I know how important it is to really set the mood. And
yeah,
I really, really was so appreciative of you and your co-star Tony being a part of these videos,
yeah,
and you two you guys will have to tell me whose idea it was to have you guys.
The
uh,
the kiss was my idea.
there we go. Didn't want to speak out of turn here, but yes, you guys
Yeah.
had a fun idea that has made the cut of the Closer music video, and I just wanted everybody to have fun, especially since, we have our ideas. Al and I have our ideas, the AD, all the different people that are contributing. Even we have an amazing costume designer, we like the
Mhm.
makeup artist, all these people, we
Yeah.
all could be doing our very, very best. There's still a chance that it all goes to shit and it looks bad and maybe the footage gets corrupt. There's a chance that the videos don't turn out.
Yeah.
And so my goal was, regardless of the anything after today, let's just have today be good.
Yeah.
Like, let's make today fun. And we also had some producers pull out last minute. So we were having our friend Warren, who was like my old boss back in the day, coming and helping last minute. And
Mhm.
we just had everybody all hands on deck. Like, just everybody was working together, and it was really fucking fun.
Yeah. No, and for me, as someone who does just work like a boring office job, like I don't know if this podcast would exist without me having had that experience, because it was so just like intensely creative that coming back home, I was like, well, I have to do something creative now. Like
Yeah,
I feel it. I got a taste and now I got to pursue it. It
exactly.
was, yeah. And it's great because like you said, you came in and you really set that standard of everybody's welcome, everybody's idea is valid, and we'll try it. And because I've seen not the color corrected, but the almost finished versions of two of the videos, they're amazing. Like they
Oh,
look
thank
so
you.
good and they're so much fun. I can't wait to be able to share them with people because people have had to listen to me talk about it for a year now.
We shot, so on the day that you and I are recording this, which is a couple days ahead of release, it is the 1 year anniversary of shooting Ruiner, which is insane. And I want to give a shout out to my colorist, Jordan Branch, who I was doing my own kind of just futzing around makeshift color, like just so that we had some idea of what it could look like. And I felt pretty
Mhm.
good about it. And then I brought it to Jordan, and then we spent a good bit of time working on it. And it just, I mean, God, my stuff looks like trash in comparison. And it's such a joy. It's such a joy to have the thing that you think is great in comparison look like shit, because it just
Yeah.
means, wow, this person made it look so much better. And then Elle is doing color on Ruiner, and that one's going to be really beautiful. And gosh, they're all very special for different reasons, and I'm excited to
Yeah.
start sharing them.
Yeah. It's so many coworkers have had to listen to me talk about it and like explaining what I did. I'd be like, well, there's a gimp mask and I kissed this guy, but it's okay because like he and I became really good friends. And like
That's great.
it's been such a fun experience like watching this happen, not only from the sidelines, but getting to be there for it. So how are you feeling as like this journey's coming to a close? Because it started with you processing something you were going through,
Mhm.
and now 2 years later it's about to go out into the world. Like how does that feel? Do you feel like you're ready for that chapter to close? Do you feel like you got what you needed out of the process?
Yeah, I kind of don't even know that I feel like it's that the process is ending. It's just the next stage of it,
Yeah.
because as I kind of mentioned, like the experience of making it was very insular. And for the most part, me and a guitar, me and a piano. But eventually I got to work with my amazing strings.
Mhm.
And they were arranged and engineered. Although I actually got to do some co-arranging too, which was very fun. But Jonathan Dinerstein and his amazing wife, Becky Ward, she's who's actually playing the instruments, and gosh, they just elevated those songs so much,
Mhm.
and they brought so much to the project, and that was so exciting because it's just bringing new life. And so I have my story as kind of the foundation of the album, well, first of all, we have Trent Reznor's story,
Yeah.
and then we have my interpretation of Trent Reznor's story based on what it means to me. And then we also have, these two other amazing artists coming in, and Adam, my co-producer, coming in, and we get really amazing pedal steel by Mark McConville on Hurt, and this really awesome guitar by Tim Ratuli on Great Destroyer. And Adam also plays saxophone. And like, we get this guy Brian Spicer singing male harmonies on Head Like a Hole, and it ends up being like this shared experience, much like the
Yeah.
music videos. And I'm just really excited that each step there seems to be more and more people getting involved. And now I'm about to reach the step of people are going to be listening to this, and they will be telling me what my versions of someone else's songs mean to them. There might be covers of my covers. Who knows? But it's just been really cool to, as I'm gearing up to release, I'm starting to cherry pick, share some of these songs with people and get some reactions. And the reactions have been really, really awesome. And I just am very excited for people to hear it and to let me know, for better or worse, what they think of it. And it'll be really interesting getting reactions from both people that don't know Nine Inch Nails, because that was my intended audience, and then people that do know Nine Inch Nails and might be furious that I've changed the melody of Reptile, and that's all really exciting. And the process will be pretty long, because I was going to do singles, but I decided, this is very much an album, and I want to release it as an album. And so I'm holding off on the music videos until people have had a chance to actually hopefully digest the whole thing from top to finish. And then I'll be slowly releasing those. And, if it ends up being successful to any degree and I end up with a little bit of more money, I'll continue making videos for songs that don't have videos yet. And I'm sure you and Tony will get the call about
Of course.
being extras for those too.
It wouldn't feel right if we weren't there,
Right?
We'll get Warren back. The whole band will be back
get the whole
together.
crew. That'd be great.
Well, I really appreciate you making time to hang out and talk about it. And I'm super excited for it to be out there. It's been fun watching the process from the sidelines. It's been fun being on set. And then, it'll be interesting to see how people react to it. And like you said, what their interpretation of it, and then how this will then translate to them, especially for those people who would never give songs like this the time of day.
Oh, yeah. Thank you. And thank you for being in my my videos and being such a big part of it.
Of course. It was so much fun. I still have the GIMP mask. I don't break it out as often as I used to, but it's still in my office. So.
Perfect.
Thanks, Allie.
Of course.
I think it's interesting when you have conversations with people about a specific topic and you go in thinking you know what the outcome will be. So for context, I recorded that conversation with Allie, a couple of weeks ago at this point, and I had already written what I thought would be the outro of the show, my final thoughts, and they were based more around crowdfunding as a whole, successful Kickstarter campaigns, some of the history of Kickstarter, some of the pitfalls of using it, and then some failures of campaigns that launched, had promise, and then kind of fizzled out. So I thought that's what it was going to be. And then we had the conversation, and then I found myself thinking about it a lot in between the time that I had the conversation with Allie and when I sat down to fully write out what the end of this episode would be. And so in thinking about it, one of the things that really stuck out to me in that conversation with Allie is the use of crowdfunding, not only as a tool to gauge interest in your project, and then obviously to help fund it, but also as a way to set deadlines and to be held accountable. And it's really not an aspect of crowdfunding that I had considered before. As I mentioned in the conversation, I really don't want to discuss anything I'm working on until it's done. I want to emerge from my office with a fully realized idea, ready to go. The thought of people knowing that I'm working on something is kind of terrifying to me. But as I was thinking about that and as I was unpacking it, it does take me back to an idea or a concept that I talked about in an earlier conversation in a very early episode of the show with Jordan Dickerson. And in that, he brings up the difference, he brings up this idea of the difference between good stress or bad stress, or good pressure and bad pressure. And in a September 2023 article on verywellmind.com, Elizabeth Scott writes about good stress. And I know for the purpose of this conversation, I'm just kind of going to interchange pressure with stress. It's just a better example of what I'm talking about, but I think they are similar enough, and it helps me make my point. And I'm the only one in this room, and I've got the microphone, so here we go. In this article, stress will become pressure. That's how I'm going to switch this out. But the article says this, quote, "While we often think of stress, pressure, as something negative to be avoided, it is a natural and expected part of our daily life. You might be surprised to hear that some stress, pressure, is actually considered good stress, good pressure. It is a type of stress or pressure you might feel when on a first date, or making an important decision, or in a competition. When we feel good stress, our heart rate increases, our breathing rate increases, and we feel the thrill of excitement, a short-term change in our bodies that helps us be prepared, energized, and ready to perform at our best. We rarely hear people say, 'I'm feeling really stressed, isn't that great?' But if we feel rudderless and unhappy, if we don't have some stress in our lives, the good stress variety, we define our stress as something that alters our homeostasis. And good stress, in its many forms, is vital for a healthy life. Bad stress or distress can even turn into good stress or vice versa, depending on the situation." End quote. And the article then goes on to list a bunch of improved cognitive abilities, increased resilience, all that are a given outcome of this short-term good stress or good pressure. So, if you are a person who performs better knowing that people are watching, if you thrive in that good stress, good pressure environment, it might be time to add some good stress to your creative projects. Does that mean that Kickstarter is the best option for everyone? Absolutely not. Does it mean that it could be the best option for you and your creative projects? Possibly. But you can also start so much smaller than that. Whether it be telling someone about an idea you have, if you've been outlining a book, maybe send some notes to someone, get some feedback. If the idea of someone knowing about what you're working on adds a level of that good stress or good pressure to help you complete a project, I definitely think that it is worth mentioning it to someone, having a conversation about it, and then pursuing it that way. And for the sake of transparency, like I said, I am writing this well after I recorded with Allie, so I've had time to think about it, and I've had time to really kind of dig in on what that aversion I have is to people knowing what I'm working on. And I clearly have no issues with saying uncomfortable things or putting myself out there. That is kind of the conceit of this show. I say whatever I want, I don't think about it, and I move forward. So nothing really holds me back in those terms. So what holds me back from talking about an idea that is not fully formed? Why do I sit on things until I feel like they're ready to be sent off into the world? So after days of really, really thinking about this, I think I have an answer. I don't want something that I'm working on to not live up to the expectations that others might have after they hear about it. When this podcast came out, I really didn't talk about it beforehand. I wrote the concept, I bought the domain, I built the website, I locked in all the socials, I recorded a trailer, I started booking guests. No long rollout, just announcing it was coming, and then posting the first episode. I wanted people to like it, of course. I wanted people to enjoy it and engage with it, but I had already completed the piece that I think is usually scariest and where most people stop, which is taking something from an idea to being something that exists. I wanted no input, I just wanted to do it, and then I wanted it to be out there and to be alive. I think that I hold the idea so precious that I want to protect it until it is ready to go out there and no longer belongs to me. Each episode, as I record it, is important, and then once I push publish, it no longer belongs to me. It's available to everyone, It exists in the world, and it is no longer mine. So do I try it the other way? Do I tell people my ideas? Do I ask for input? And do I set those expectations, knowing that I don't want them out there, and that for me there is a large fear of whatever I come up with not living up to those expectations? Or even worse, me not being able to complete the project, and not being able to deliver the thing that I already told people would exist. So do I try it the other way? And do I tell people about my ideas and ask for input? Or set those expectations that I know deep down I don't want out there? I don't know yet. All I know is that I have a few ideas that I'm sitting on. Some are podcasts, some are other mediums, and I think they all have legs. But I know they're not ready to walk. And I do not want them to fall flat on their face in the full view of others. But maybe that fear of expectation is holding me back. Maybe sharing those ideas and opening up about the things I'm passionate about will spark a level of creativity that I haven't fully experienced yet due to staying in that fear of what those expectations could mean. So maybe it's time to talk about those other projects I'm working on. Maybe it's time to put my unformed, unfinished ideas in full view. Maybe it's time to do a little crowdsourcing.
Thank you for listening. Please rate, review, like, and subscribe. Thanks.